Welcome back to the High Sierra Report. I'm your host, Kat Lauricella, and I have Dan Bigley in the studio, and he's talking about his new book, Beyond the Bow. Thanks for coming in, Dan.
Absolutely.
So tell us what the book is about, what it covers.
Sure. So it really leads readers through some of the events leading up to the actual encounter with the brown bear. You know, and to kind of sum it up, life was as good as I could have ever expected it to be, kind of leading up to this. Almost too good to be true type of a thing. And so I definitely didn't foresee what lay around the corner, and that was obviously meeting the brown bear and really suffering an attack that took my eyes and nearly took my life. And yet the day before I met the bear, I just had a really special night with a very special woman from Minnesota. And the last thing I said to her before taking off fishing was, "I'll call you when I get off the river." And of course, that would be a promise I was unable to keep. And so the story goes from there and leads readers through, you know, what the experience was like for my family members and my friends, and how everybody came together to circle around me and support me. And then woven through the story is sort of this relationship with this woman and her really questioning, you know, who am I and who are we? We had this one special night. And, you know, nobody would have blamed her for running for the hills, and yet she really stuck with us, and we kind of, you know, after going separate directions, you know, found our way back to each other, and I really worked hard and was really inspired by her to do the best I could and to be the best person I could be, not just to stay alive, but to really live a life worth living, and not just to be alive, but to be somebody who she would want to be with. And so that kind of sets the stage for all the events that unfolded after that. And I don't want to give too much away, but it gives an idea of what the book is.
Well, it sounds like an epic love story.
It is, yeah, indeed. And it's set in this dramatic nature scenery in Alaska, and you know, it includes a lot of the culture and the fishing culture and our love for music. And so it's a pretty rich, has a lot of dynamics in the story.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And when, you know, obviously after the attack, what helped you through the recovery phase? Were your family and friends obviously a big part of that? And
Sure.
What helped you get back on your feet?
Well, you know, before it was clear if I was going to live or not, and before I would even know if I was blind, as I lay on the forest floor after the bear had mauled me, I had this near-death experience, or death experience, I guess, wherein I knew I had a choice to either just let go, which was the easy choice, or I could choose a much harder choice, full of unknown challenges, and I didn't even know if I would survive, and that was the choice to fight to live. And I had this image of my mom, and she was just smiling and waving, just as happy as she could be, and I knew in that moment that I needed to fight to live. And the only way I can explain it is I was filled with that real powerful primordial feeling that is the love between a mother and child. And you know, after that, I was inspired by this love that I had for this woman from Minnesota that I mentioned earlier. And then finally, I'd say, you know, there was this one place in my body, in the hospital and oftentimes in the recovery afterwards, where the rest of my body was just filled with pain and terror, and yet this one place in my body, I had this feeling, and I don't know what to call it, whether it was love or life or God or whatever, but I could focus all of my energy on that one spot, and I think it was just a feeling of being alive, and I was so grateful to have it that I just held on to that and focused all of my attention on that one spot to help me through some of the hardest times.
Wow. And I would recommend for everybody to get out and go buy a copy of this book, because you never know, you know, it's something that could happen to anybody. So we'll be back with more from Dan after the break, so make sure you stay tuned for the High Sierra Report. We'll be back with Dan.